Hello friends, a very good day to you. Today we are going to talk about the non-cooperation movement. It is a watershed movement in the history of India because it is the first, broad-based mass practice of the ideals, of the Gandhian ideals and of the Gandhian political strategies in India. That is the strategy of Satyagraha, that is the strategy of non-violent non-cooperation, okay, which of course there are precedents but not of this scale, okay, not of the scale which the non-cooperation movement was, all right. And the non-cooperation movement, while we are studying it, of course we cannot separate it or we cannot study it in separation of the Khilafat movement, all right. And remember the fact that there are three kinds of grievances, three kinds of specific grievances which have been highlighted as being causative or as being the principal grievances which are being protested against during the non-cooperation Khilafat movement, all right. And the three grievances are: number one, the Punjab wrongs; number two, the Khilafat wrongs; and number three, Swaraj. The first two indicate the grievances, the third indicates the demand, the specific demand which has been put forward through the non-cooperation movement. Of course, the non-cooperation movement, these are the demands or these are the grievances and demands which have been voiced through the non-cooperation movement by the Congress and the Khilafat committee. But there are certain causative agents behind the non-cooperation movement, long-term causes which lead up to the non-cooperation movement and the resolutions carried forward by the Khilafat committee and the Indian National Congress. Okay, let us look at the causes behind the non-cooperation movement. Now, as far as causes are concerned, we know that the non-cooperation movement comes at a time when the war has, ended, there has been certain specific pressures which had been put by the First World War on the economy of India. The economy is in decline, okay. There is wide-scale inflation, low production, all right. And of course, there is general unrest among people and the people are feeling the brunt of the economic situation which has been created by the war, okay, and pressure on, therefore the third will be pressure on commoners, all right. These are the economic causes, okay, behind the non-cooperation movement. The people are restive because the war has destabilized the Indian economy and the Britishers had already linked up the Indian economy to the worldwide economy, and therefore the destabilizing influence of the First World War is being felt by the Indian economy also. Prices of commodities are going up, all right. Manufacturing activities are slowing down, demand is slowing down, and therefore people are finding it very tough to go along, all right. And on top of all this, we know that the Rowlatt Satyagraha had taken place and there was wide-scale repression in Punjab, okay. So, the second cause, right, Satyagraha and repression, all right. The Rowlatt Satyagraha had already taken place in Punjab, all right, and certain parts of Bengal and certain parts of Gujarat also. But the repression that takes place in Punjab is of a very brutal and ruthless nature. We know about the Jallianwala Bagh massacre that took place where thousands of people died, okay, and even conservative estimates don't put it less than 900 or 800 people dead, all right, the Jallianwala Bagh massacre. So we know that these kind of wrongs had been perpetrated by the British government. However, when it goes into debate in the British Parliament, we know that the House of Lords, all right, they support the activity or they support the actions of General Dyer, who was responsible for this massacre, okay. So the Indian masses are already incensed about all of these things, okay. And add to that the Khilafat wrongs, Khilafat issue, okay. Add to all of this the Khilafat issue. Now, what is the Khilafat issue? Now, the First World War had taken place, and in the First World War, Turkey Alright, Turkey had sided with Germany and Austria, which were on the losing side, all right, and they had lost the First World War. And there was a speculation that after the war, Turkey will be dismembered, and by dismemberment, I mean that Turkey will be divided up among the European states, and that the power of the Ottoman ruler, okay, the power of the ruler of Turkey will be taken away, that he will not carry any kind of political power post the necessary peace arrangements that or peace diplomacy that takes place after a war. Okay, so we know that Turkey, which sided with Germany and Austria, will be dismembered, and people had also come to know that the Khalifa will lose his power. Okay, will lose his power. All right. Now, what's the matter with the Khalifa losing his power, and how come it influences the political activities in India? Well, if you have studied your medieval history well, then we understand that Muslims all over the world see the Khalifa as the leader of Orthodox Islam. Okay, they look up to the Khalifa for spiritual leadership. All right. So once the Khalifa loses his powers, okay, loses his political powers and loses his powers of office, we already see that the Muslims, the Indian Muslims in India, are not very happy about this outcome, and they are incensed about it. All right. So this also becomes a very important issue, and the Muslim League is quick to pick upon this issue, and we will see that the Khilafat committee is formed, and they, along with the Congress, move forward with the non-cooperation movement. All right. Now, apart from this, there is also a fourth very important destabilizing cause behind the growth of the non-cooperation movement, and the fourth cause is diarchy. Through 1919 Act and its failure. All right. So the Montagu-Chelmsford reforms had taken place, and it had introduced diarchy. Okay, diarchy as a scheme of responsible government. But from our discussion, we have a video on diarchy. Also, we have a video on Montagu-Chelmsford reforms. From those videos, you will understand that the diarchy was not able to satisfy the political demands for self-governance or political demands for responsible government. There were certain provisions within the scheme of diarchy which were anathema to the Congress intellectuals, all right, or the Congress ideologues. Okay, so therefore diarchy also came under opposition from the Congress and from the politically motivated masses of India, all right, and therefore we see that it also contributed towards the rise of the non-cooperation movement. Okay, so these are the causes behind the non-cooperation movement. Now let us look at the background to the non-cooperation movement, or how it goes on to how it evolves. Okay, now as far as the background is concerned, we know that in 1918 itself, in early months of 1918, a Khilafat committee has already been formed. Okay, it is an all India Khilafat committee, and it comprises of members also from Congress and the Muslim League. It comprises of members from Congress and Muslim League both. All right, and we know that Mahatma Gandhi has also provided tentative support to the all India Khilafat committee. Mahatma Gandhi is even the president of the all India Khilafat committee. Now the committee itself had been formed under the leadership of the Ali brothers, that is Shaukat Ali, Muhammad Ali. Also, we have got Maulana Azad as one of the formative members. Okay, we have Ajmal Khan and Hasrat Mohani. These are the prominent individuals who are, responsible for the formation of the All India Khilafat Committee, and of course they nominate Mahatma Gandhi as the president of the All India Khilafat Committee. And in the Delhi session of the Khilafat Conference, a resolution is passed that if the British do not accede to the demands of the Khilafat committee, the demand being the Khilafat issue, okay, that the Turkey should be dealt with favorably. Their first primary demand was that, okay, let us look at the demands, okay, rather than just you see speaking them, rather than just voicing them out, let me you see write down the demands. That is, Turkey should be favored, you see, Turkey should be favorably dealt with, okay, Turkey should be favorably dealt with. So the dealings with Turkey post-war should be favorable, okay, they should not be very oppressive. And secondly, you see, the Khalifa should retain his powers. And of course, it goes without saying that he should retain his powers and also his territorial possessions. There was, there was a tendency among the British diplomats which supported the idea that the Khalifa should be, his powers should be taken away along with his territories. But the Khilafat conference deemed that the Khalifa should retain his powers and also enough territories to sustain him. Okay, so these were the demands which was put forward by the Delhi session, and they also resolved that if these demands were not met, then they would start what is known as a peaceful boycott. Okay, so the Delhi session had resolved upon these issues. Now, since these resolutions have already taken place, now how do we connect the non-cooperation movement or the Khilafat movement, okay, the Khilafat non-cooperation movement with the Indian National Congress? We know that within the ranks of the Congress itself, there are certain oppositions, okay, within Congress to the tie-up. All right, opposition within Congress to the tie-up, okay, with opposition within Congress to the tie-up with Khilafat. Now, people like Tilak, who are a little bit motivated by ideas of religion, they are, you see, not supportive of this idea of a tie-up between the Khilafat issue and the Congress issues. Okay, we know that the Punjab wrongs issue which has been raised is a specific issue which has been raised by the Congress, and also the Swaraj issue. Although the Khilafat committee also you see demands for Swaraj, but it is an issue which is exclusively within the Congress ranks, okay, exclusively raised from within the Congress ranks. And you see, people like Tilak who don't want to ally with the Khilafat committee, they do not want to conflate these issues with the Khilafat issue, okay. And however, Gandhi is somehow able to convince these diverging sections, okay, and bring them together in order to put up a two-pronged, or we can call it, put up a concentrated and put up a united front against the British government, okay, British establishment. So, having said that, we understand that the Treaty of Sevres, which was later Treaty of Sevres, okay, let me write that down. Treaty of Sevres, which was later signed, you see, all of the misgivings which the Khilafat committee had held about the diplomacy of the Europeans regarding Turkey, it comes true, okay, during the Treaty of Sevres, and whatever they had thought, it comes to pass. The Khalifa loses his power, Turkey loses territories, and therefore we see that the Ottoman rule itself, it comes to a close. Through the Treaty of Sevres, there are widespread destabilizations that has taken place, and therefore you see, in June, resolution is taken out, okay, by the Khilafat committee. In June of 1920, resolution is taken out by the Khilafat committee that boycott will begin, okay, will start in earnest, all right, and this starts from the August of 1920, okay. Boycott starts from the August of 1920, and the Congress also, you see, supports this boycott move, because a special session of the Congress which is held in Calcutta, 1920, it, you see, lays down the plans for the boycott. Okay, how will this boycott proceed, what will be included, what will be the activities that will be included in this boycott plan, all right. And by the Nagpur session of Congress, which takes place in 1920, in the December of 1920, we see that there are certain organizational changes that takes place, okay, and whereby we see that the Congress readies itself to ally itself with the Khilafat issues and begin the non-cooperation movement in earnest. Okay, we will talk about it in the next section of this video.